श्रीमन्नारायण। काश्यपान्वय संजातं नारायण पदाश्रितं श्रीमन्नारायणं वन्दे यतीश्वर श्रियाजुषम्। ॐ अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे। स्वतः सिद्धं शुद्धस्फटिकमणिभूभृत्प्रतिभटं सुधासद्रीचीभिः द्युतिभिरवदात त्रिभुवनम् अनन्तैः अनुविहितहेशाहलहलम् हताशेषावद्यम् हयवदनमीडीमहि महः। समाहारः साम्नां प्रतिपदमृचां रामयजुषां लयः प्रत्युहानां लहरिविततिर्बोधजलदेः कथादर्पक्षुभ्यत् कथककुलकोलाहलभवम् हरत्वन्तर्ध्वान्तम् हयवदनहेशाहलहलः। प्राची सन्ध्या काचिदन्तर्निशायाः प्रज्ञादुष्टैरञ्जनश्रीरपूर्वा वक्त्री वेदान् बातुमेवाजिवक्त्रा वागी साख्या वासुदेवस्य मूर्तिः। विशुद्धविज्ञानघनस्वरूपम् विज्ञानविश्राननबद्धदीक्षम् दयानिधिम् देहभृतां शरण्यम् देवं हयग्रीवमहं प्रपद्ये। अपौरुषेरैरपि वा प्रपञ्चैः अद्यापि ते भूतिमदृष्टपाराम् स्तुवन्नहं मुग्ध इति त्वयैव कारुण्यतो नाथकटाक्षणीयः। दाक्षिण्यरम्या गिरिसस्यमूर्तिः देवी सरोजासन धर्मपत्नी व्यासादयोऽपि व्यपदेश्यवाचः स्फुरन्ति सर्वे तव शक्तिलेशैः। मन्दो भविष्यन्नियतं विरिञ्चो वाचामि देवञ्चितभागधेयः दैत्यापनीतान्ययैव भूयोऽपि अध्यापयिष्यो निगमानचेत्त्वम्। पितर्कडोलां व्यवधूय सत्त्वे बृहस्पतिं वर्तयसे यतस्त्वम्। तेनैव देवत्रदशेश्वराणाम् अस्पृष्टदोलायितमादिराज्यम् अग्नौ समिद्धाक्षि सप्ततन्तोः आतस्तिवान् मन्त्रमयं शरीरम्। अखण्डसारे हविषां प्रदानैः आप्यायनं व्योम सदां विदत्से। यन्मूलमीदृक्प्रतिभाति तत्त्वम् या मूलमाम्नाय महाद्रुमाणाम् तत्त्वेन जानन्ति विशुद्धसत्त्वाः तामक्षरामक्षरमातृकान्ते। अव्याकृताद्व्याकृतवानसि त्वम् नामानि रूपाणि चयानि पूर्वम् संसन्ति तेषां चरमां प्रतिष्ठाम् वागीश्वरत्वां त्वदुपज्ञवाचः। मनोगतुनिश्यन्द विलोभनीयाम् मूर्तिं तवानन्द सुधा प्रसूतिम् विपश्चितश्चेतसि भावयन्ते वेलामुदारामिव दुग्ध सिन्धोः। मनोगतं पश्यति यः सदा त्वाम् मनीषीणामानसराजहंसम् स्वयं पुरो भावविवादभाजः किं कुर्वते तस्य गिरो यथार्हम्। ॐ अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। जय श्रीनारायण।
Thank you for the wonderful start to the events of today. It is my honor to call upon our chief mentor, Sundar Ramachandran ji, to address the gathering.
Good morning. Kalai Vanakangal. It gives me great pleasure to stand before you on behalf of the Veranda Club. I also understand that we are running late and actually, personally, I would like to fast forward to the Fast Forward Bharat as soon as possible. So I don't want to keep all of you waiting for the real nice programs that are on offer today. But I wanted to share a few thoughts, and I would be remiss if I did not mention these. So first off is that we at the Veranda Club are very thankful. We are a very young organization, and the kind of support that we have got from the eminent thought leaders, speakers, who have graced our occasion last year as well as this year. We are also very grateful to Shefali ji for guiding us last year and guiding us this year. I think this year we gave less trouble to her than last year, and we will give even more less trouble next year. Professor Kanak Sabhapati has been our guiding light, and he is so self-effacing and so understated that you will really need to look at what he's really saying and act upon that. You would be surprised that he has been meeting some of the topmost political entities and powers that be in this country, but you wouldn't know about it. And in spite of his extremely busy schedule of his various responsibilities, he finds time for Veranda Club. So thank you, sir. Now, the other thing which I wanted to share was the kind of effort which the eminent speakers have put in, apart from their own professional lives, which they obviously have, in terms of research, in terms of study, in terms of field visits, to bring to us in a capsule, so wonderfully, to bring us up to speed on what they know and their knowledge. It's a huge amount of hard work, and the least that we can do to reciprocate that is to see how best we can support them in terms of time or effort or financially, or even working the ecosystem to smooth the path for them if it is at all possible. Because yesterday's Sri Abhijit ji's and Dr. Amit Tadani's talk, you could understand the power of the ecosystem. And the power of the ecosystem, as somebody famously said, the government can be yours, but the ecosystem is ours. So we need to fight that ecosystem, and how we fight it in our own ways, each of us will know better than some prescriptions from the top. The second thing which I wanted to speak about was the Veranda Club itself, and what next for us. Yes, we will continue our flagship events, but it has been my passion, especially after the Kongu Tamil Sangamam last year, that there is so much of richness in what the Tamil language and the Tamil speakers have to offer, that we need to take this to the Tamil hinterland, at least around Coimbatore, Pollachi, Tirupur, Avinashi, Ooty. And I was just talking to somebody, how can we translate whatever happened here yesterday into Tamil? I believe there is Google Translate or all kinds of stuff, and have a voiceover done and conduct this kind of program, a one-day program to people around this city, they should also get benefited by this. That is something that is very passionate in my mind. We will try to work on that in the Veranda Club. The other thing is, again, I go back to Sri Abhijit joke, wokeism, that really scared us. I mean, that we didn't realize, we thought it was a joke on WhatsApp, but it's so pervasive. How do you nip it? Maybe Veranda Club should think of at least adopting a couple of schools, whatever little bit that we can do, and try to, counter that narrative. So that is something that we want to do. The last thing that I want to talk about is it is very important that each one of us are economically strong, because even today India does so many things on the world stage because of its newfound economic heft. And I think each one of us must be economically strong, do whatever we can to help people around us to become economically strong. And I, for one, talk to all all the people who provide service to me and try to send the Tamil versions of whatever is available, so that we try to bring them to the right kind of thinking. And we need to, give them the respect and say that, yeah, they are good thinking people, only they have been brainwashed for so long, and it's our duty to see that they come to the right path. So once again, it has been a wonderful yesterday, and I'm sure today will be equally or more wonderful. It's a byline in our family that Raman Parthupan, great Rama devotees in the family. So Raman Parthupan, Rama will take care, Rama will look after. But I want to add, Rama was one of the epitome of duty. And so we also need to do our duty by what requires to be done. With that, I end my address, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Up next, we are in for a big treat now, as we have a special session of Bharat Fast Forward by Srimati Shefali Vaidya, Mr. Anand Ranganathan, Vishnu Shankar Jainji, along with Sri Rohan Dua, a journalist, executive editor for the New Indian and a media personality. We welcome you all on stage.
Vishnu Jainji had to leave early yesterday because he had some cases coming. So we have requested Raghav Krishnaji to be a part of this panel. I request him to come on stage, please. Hello. Hello, Namaskar everybody, and welcome to day 2 of Western Ghats Literature Festival 2.0. We have some very, very interesting sessions planned today, and this is the first session which is kind of setting the tone for the theme of this festival, which is Bharat Fast Forward. We are a very lucky generation of Bharatiyas because we are poised at this point in history with some very, very interesting things happening in Bharat. Today we are the only country which is friendly with Russia and with Ukraine. We are the only country that stands steadfastly with Israel and also saying that the other side also needs to be heard. We are said to be one of the largest economies in the world. You know all that. That's been coming in the media. But more important than that, I think we are once again poised on the brink of an opportunity, a great opportunity to reclaim our position in the world as Vishwaguru. So this panel discussion is basically going to talk about Bharat going fast forward in a variety of areas. So the way I've structured is all of our eminent speakers will get 5 to 7 minutes to make their opening statements. Then we'll have a very brief discussion, and after that I'll open the floor to questions from the audience, because that is what is really needed, a dialogue between people and dialogue between people essentially. So I request, since all of our eminent speakers are actually domain experts in their own respective field, I would like them to make their opening statement on, I would request Rohan to make an opening statement on media and the future of media, just 1 minute. Then I will request Anand to make a statement, his opening statement on Bharat and the equal rights for all citizens, which basically means rights for Hindus essentially. And Raghav has been doing wonderful work in the field of Indian knowledge systems and the spread of Bharat's soft power. So I would like to like him to talk about Indian knowledge systems, the future of Indian knowledge systems, their global appeal, and about Bharat regaining its position as Vishwaguru once and for all. Rohan, over to you.
Thank you everyone, and thank you Shefali ji. You have actually been a very good friend, and so has been Anand over the last 5 or 6 years. It sort of gives me a privilege to introduce and reintroduce ourselves as a digital media outfit called New Indian. When I and my partner, co-founder Aarti Tikku began this journey in 2021, our whole objective was not to take on the monstrous wire or the print or the scroll who had devastated this country for the last 10 years or so, or even before, when they pursued journalism, which I call it armchair journalism. I take it as a privilege that if my parents sent me to the brilliant alma mater of this country where I could become a fine journalist, whether it was St. Stephen's or London School of Economics, I never wrote either an article in the mainstream media where I worked, whether it was Reuters, Times of India, or Indian Express, before I ventured into this journey. I rather took it as a pride that if I have to move to the hinterlands of my country, then I must report from the field where these armchair journalists today who are on the radar of the investigative agencies, that is CBI and ED, for having received funds from China or the American billionaires. They continue to become the tormentors of India even now, as someone famously said, कि system तो अभी भी हमारा ही है. मैं उन पत्रकारों में से आता हूं जो स्वदेश को स्वदेश कहना भी सीखते हैं और जो भारत को भारत कहना ही स्वीकार करते हैं. मुझे अपने पत्रकारिता पे भी उतना ही गर्व है और नाज है कि 2019 में अगर आर्टिकल 370 हटाया जाता है तो हम जैसे पत्रकार 5 अगस्त को ही रात को श्रीनगर पहुंच के वहां से रिपोर्ट करते हैं और ये दिखाते हैं कि कोई भी मस्जिद वहां पे बंद नहीं हुआ, जो आपको अगले दिन वायर और प्रिंट और स्क्रोल में बताया जाएगा कि पहली नमाज फ्राइडे की वहां पे उसी तरीके से होगी जो 370 की धारा हटने से पहले हो रही है. I am going to, when the session goes on to get moderated, but I am going to reveal and make some startling disclosures on how certain websites continue to receive funds from a man called George Soros, who has become India's famous tormentor for the last 7 or 8 years and has been also parallelly elected the governments in several states, which I'm going to make the disclosures, which hurts me and the sentiments and the collective sentiments of this country, and it should. And why it should not, when people like Abhisar Sharma, people like certain people I don't want to name right now, go on to side with the state chief minister's son of a city where we are sitting, when he makes disparaging remarks about Hindu Dharma by comparing it to dengue. And these same websites still have the gall and temerity and audacity to write the articles by saying that Tamil Nadu Chief Minister's son is picking up faults and punching holes in the weaknesses of this dharma. They do not have the courage to call wrong a wrong, to call spade a spade. And that is where journalists, modern journalists like us, who have quit the conventional journalism of the broadcast or print journalism where we were earning more than what we are earning now, while actually desolating those comforts of journalism, we have taken the cudgels to enter into an industry where we are partnering with Litfest like this, and we are taking the voices to the national capital of Delhi proudly. We must do that because if the mainstream and conventional journalism is not able to do that, we are going to be shouldering that responsibilities with utmost level of trust and faith. And that is where I believe that from here on, this journey must continue, it must evolve, that evolution must continue. And I can tell you with utmost sense of responsibility that we at New Indian will show what is right. We are not going to get afraid or cowed down by the Zubairs or the Rathis of this world. We are going to bring the Rang De Basanti. आपने जो उखाड़ना उखाड़ लीजिए, हम यहाँ से पीछे नहीं हटेंगे. That is our journalism.
Very well said, Rohan, and wish you all the best in this journey. I know you've been doing some exemplary work and even breaking some stories which no mainstream media would ever dare to touch. More power to you. Good luck to you. Now I ask Anand, you have spoken at length yesterday about the 8 challenges that Hindus face in this nation. And while I understand your position about what the government needs to do, I have a different question for you. I want you to talk about the same thing, but from the people's perspective, and suggest what do you think are the solutions, what each one of us can do in terms of creating pressures, in terms of making changes in our behavior. What does the future of Bharat look for the Hindus of Bharat?
Thank you very much, Shefali, and once again my real thanks with appreciation to the amazing organizers of this festival for inviting me. Yesterday was really an honor and a pleasure to be witnessing all those marvelous sessions, including the cherry on top, which was Vishnu's session. So thank you so much once again. Shefali, so in the 5 minutes that I have, I've decided I will not talk about my book or the 8 reasons there, because we did that yesterday and you asked a very probing question, and I think I kind of answered that the best way I could. I want to begin and end on a very despondent note. That's how I want to wish you all a very good Sunday. Because when you ask what is the future of Hindus and of India when we do fast forward, essentially that's the question. The answer is very bleak. And I'll explain to you why, and why nothing can be done about it. So this is one thing that I've thought about, and I think a lot of you have thought about as well. And there is no solution to this. And it's not just me saying this. The person who realized this before us, before me, was Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, and he realized this more than a century ago. So I'm not reinventing the wheel here. What I want to put across you is, think of a solution. I can't, but here are the facts. The facts is that if we move fast forward, maybe 30 years down the line, 40 years down the line, maybe not so far off, maybe if we move forward before we move fast forward, we would realize that the problem is not so much of demography. The problem is of the shift of demography. India, the total fertility rate, as India develops economically, people become wealthier, they produce less and less children. The so-called population explosion bogey will no longer be an impediment in our progress. There is ample scientific and other data to show this as well. The total fertility rate in many states, including states that have more than 30 to 40% Muslim population, is going down. It's actually it's in Bengal it is less than 2, which is the case for many European countries. In many cases it is high, but if you look at the decadal population rate for Hindus as well as Muslims, it's going down. The trends are good across religious communities. Of course, Hindus, it's going down faster. The question is not of population. The question is when a society which is seeped in religious dogma decides to come together and shift en masse. That is what is happening. That was the reason for Pakistan, and that is the biggest worry for this country going forward, even beyond forward, going fast forward. There already are regions where you have 90%, 95% Muslim population. I don't even want to talk about Kashmir, the Kashmir Valley, which is 98% Muslim. And you know what happens there. This is not something that I'm going to tell you that would be news to you. When you have a Muslim majority state or a population, you know the kind of things that happen, and they would happen unabashedly because you are following the fundamentals. It is not something to be embarrassed about. They would say, this is written, you allow this, you haven't banned this. This is what is going to happen. We are going to pass laws. Already in Jharkhand, you have Sunday being removed from as a holiday. You have Friday as a holiday. Already you have, when you had in Kashmir Valley, cinema halls were closed. Women were not allowed to do a lot of things that they were doing earlier. You had, a lot of persecutions against gays, homosexuals. Those are the things that are written as fundamentals. Those are the things that are going to happen. So India will not become a Muslim majority nation for another centuries, maybe, hundreds of years. But there will be strong pockets that would be almost 100% Muslim majority. There is no solution to that because everything is happening legally, everything is happening with legal, lawful sanction, and you can't do anything. Jaise there is a meme, sab aap shant rahiye, sab tasalli se ho raha hai. I don't, what's the exact language, So Kairana, for example, was 30% Muslim just a decade ago or more ago. It is now 93% Muslim. 2 days ago in Malappuram, you had the ex-Hamas chief being linked up. I've just tweeted the video, maybe it's not gone yet. Tens of thousands of Keralites, Indians, are wildly cheering and applauding him. This is the same terrorist whose organization has just murdered 1,400 innocent men, women and children, beheaded children, raped en masse, abducted elderly. And you have this guy linked up in Kerala, God's own country. And you have tens of thousands of Indians cheering him. This is happening. This is happening across the country. You've just witnessed the new riots in Mewat. Let me quote to you from a magazine. In December 1947, Mohandas Gandhi visited Ghasera village in Mewat. That's the region where you have 70 to 80% Muslim majority. Amid the tumult of partition, he assured the Mios, the community of Muslims native to the region, that their security was paramount to him and urged them to reconsider leaving for Pakistan. Mios heeded Gandhi's words and stayed back. They wanted to leave. Gandhi went there and said, don't. They stayed back. Now it is 80% Muslim population. You had the new riots. You had the mob entering a hospital. segregating the patients into Hindu and Muslim patients, Hindu and Muslim doctors, assaulting a 3-year-old child of a Hindu doctor. This is not something to worry about the Indian Muslim population. This is happening because of demographic shift. And if you think, yes, you may, that I am a Sanghi, I am saying this, let me now quote someone. Quote, "The only effective way of solving the minorities problem lies in population exchange. Until that is done, even with the creation of Pakistan, the problem of majority versus minority will remain. Transfer of minorities is the only lasting remedy for communal peace," unquote. Who said this? B.R. Ambedkar. He could see it. He could see the things almost 80 years ago. But even before him, someone who could see him was, I began the thing and I'll end very quickly, was Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. He said Islam is a religion that is intent upon destroying all other religions. So I'm not reinventing the wheel here. If you read the scriptures, as Gurudev read, he realized it. And he said the only way to maintain peace is to succumb to it. Now, that is India forward, fast forward, super fast forward, whatever you may call it. But essentially what is going to happen is India is going to go backwards. Thank you.
That was a despondent note, you were right. But I am an optimist, so I will quote a Dylan Thomas poem here, which says, "Do not go gently into the night, rage and rage till the dying light." So even if we have to go into the dark night, like wise men like you say that the night is dark, we should rage and rage against the dying light, and we should not go gently into the dark night. My question to you, Raghav, is, okay, please say something positive because I don't want people to go out for the coffee break looking very sad and despondent.
My apologies.
So we are talking about Indian knowledge system. We are talking about the world realizing the goodness in a lot of things that are from Bharat, like meditation, like yoga, like realizing the potential of Ayurveda and all your new age healing techniques like NLP, like whatever you call it. It's ultimately based on our philosophy, it's ultimately based on our techniques, it's ultimately based on the knowledge and wisdom that Bharat has to offer to the world. So what do you think the future is going to be for Bharat? Can we really become Vishwaguru? Can we really regain our status? And please be positive.
Hari Om. I think from Vishwaguru to despondency, I think it's representative of the schizophrenia that the modern Hindu mind and the modern Hindu society lives in. In fact, what just happened in the last 10 minutes is a microcosm of what our daily life is. There are moments where we feel, in communities like this, when we talk about our knowledge systems, when we walk into spaces which represent our culture, we feel optimistic. We feel that we represent the morality of a civilization. We feel that sense of confidence. We feel the empathy of our ancestors. But you also look at the political reality, and you look at the demographic reality, you look at the global reality, and you recognize that your optimism has to be tempered a little bit. But it is also the quintessential ability of the Hindu mind to reconcile the opposites. And we are coherent, we are a nation, we are a civilization, simply because the Hindu mind has the ability to look at the large patterns and replicate in its everyday life, in its nitya karma, the patterns that sustain the entire universe. So for a civilization that has understood how the entire cosmology is created and sustained, I think, and while I take Anand's words with a lot of serious concern, I am an optimist, but the question really is, what should we do? My friend Pankaj has a very good quip on this, saying that we recognize all of this, but you are ultimately like Rama's squirrel, all of us. You take whatever you can take on the back of your shoulders, and you take that sand and you go and build that bridge, right? So that's always been the civilizational way, and I think that gives us an opportunity to look at what kind of knowledge will help us navigate through this. The knowledge of reality, the knowledge of demography is also part of that knowledge. But there is, we at Brihat, where, we work together, our idea is about culture as the as the primary concern, because everything that we're talking about resides in culture. It resides in the daily exchange that produces meaning and that we learn through the process of socialization. And these are the instruments that we need to recreate, because that is what this civilization sustained on. So when we speak about knowledge systems, we are talking about two simultaneous things. One is, of course, the culture, and I'll maybe quickly define or at least offer a definition of culture from how we see it. And the second is the institutionalization of that, which gives us civilization. And in that, I think lies our answer of how do we survive, move forward, and potentially thrive. We need both Swayambodh and Shatrubodh. We need to know ourselves and we need to know the enemies. And this whole sense that there is no other, everything is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not true. Because even if you look at the Niti Shastra that it comes from, the word itself, that phrase itself comes from a very, very different kind of usage and a different context, right? So how do we decode this? How do we understand the role that knowledge systems has to play and culture has to play in this? I'll try and give an example of culture that I recently experienced when I looked at the news from Odisha. About 3 months ago, there was this terrible train accident in Odisha, right? Just a matter of seconds, the entire train flipped and people died. About 11 days later, because that was a moment of national grief, about 11 days later, the people in that village, all the people in the nearby village, they came together and they offered Pitrurana, the Tarpana, to people who died in the train accident. Now, this one single minute, it was just a 1 minute clip on national television, it tells you the genius of this civilization. And not as Pawan Verma writes about this in the Great Hindu Civilization, that the imagination of Bharat as a geocultural entity, which is the Icha of the Rishis, and the answer to Anand's provocation to all of us about whether we will survive or not is also in that. It is not just our Shakti. There is a higher Shakti that is at play, will always be at play in India. And the villagers, without any state action, without any market incentive, came together and they offered a ritual for somebody that they've never met after death. What is it telling us? It is telling us that Hindus play the infinite game, and that is culturalized. And they are able to come together by their own volition to offer something to others that they've never met and will never meet. The people are dead, right? And that is the metaphysics of karma and punarjanma. Why did they do this? They did this because they understood that if the death was sudden, there are certain desires that are left unfulfilled for those souls. In the Hindu way of thinking, you have to offer something so that the souls have their journey. Now, this kind of very abstract metaphysical thinking seeped into the everyday habit is what we call culture. Culture is not food, travel, selfie. Culture is the metaphysics of life, death, karma. And in our understanding, if we have to look at what will help us survive, it is going back to that knowledge which gives you the way to live, which then sacralizes the entire place. All of us have this experience in our own houses, because so far this analysis of a rational kind, which is very critical, very important, does not fully tap into the Daivik Shakti that is actually the basis for this civilization. And if you just understand and reflect on our own behavior every day, in each of our houses, there are different spaces. In most of the Indian homes, regardless of religion perhaps, but definitely in Hindu homes, you will have a space which is dedicated to gods. You are the same person and you have extraordinarily bad behavior in the rest of the house. But when you move into that part, you are mindful. You are actually very, very aware of what you speak. You are aware of what your content is of your mind, right? Why did that happen? It happened because you acknowledge that there is a higher presence. You are in the presence of that force, and it alters your behavior immediately. And it is through that behavior that we create common action. And it is this we call the knowledge system. The knowledge system is not some abstract where, of course, there is a whole ontology, axiology, epistemology, praxis. We can speak the academic jargon. But the fact is that this genius of this civilization is that the metaphysics of life, death, the metaphysics of what is meaning, what is transcendence, has been culturalized into the everyday living, and it has created the sacred space. Now, if we can understand this example of what happens in our own houses when we visit the sacred space, and you then wonder about how did this civilization, without actually having whatever centralized institutions that we see in other cultures, how did it actually come together? What Pawan Verma calls the audacity of ideas. That ideas of karma, punarjanma, rina, nityakriya, all of these things have built this land of 2,000 square kilometers by 1,800 square kilometers, north to south, east to west, for over at least 6,000 years. What is it that is binding? There is a different Shakti that is at play here, and the way to survive, the way to define knowledge systems, is to actually tap into the traditions of knowledge and start, for example, to be very specific, what needs to be done? We need to get the Bhairava back, we need to get Ma Durga back, we need to get Sri Rama back. The minute your gods start talking in culture, the minute our people start looking at our gods in our culture, then the forces that you're talking about are not greater than our gods. That is the belief that we need to go with.
Very well said. This reminds me of a story, a Marathi story that I read. That was about a monastery somewhere in Afghanistan. And this is when Afghanistan is going through the transition from being a Hindu stroke Buddhist nation to Islam has come to the borders, and there are frequent raids from across the border. And every time the raids happen, the monasteries are deserted because the monks don't fight. So what they do is they just leave the monastery as it is and they run away and hide in the caves. And then the marauders come, they break the murtis, and that is where the word Butchikan came from, because there were so many Buddha murtis and they were destroyed. So that is how the Islamist marauders call themselves murti destroyers, Butchikan. So this goes on like over a couple of years continuously, and the story starts with there is a very old monk who is meditating, and there is a news that there is a raid. So all the younger monks are packing up their stuff and they're saying, let's go, let's run away. It's again come. So the old monk, this time, he stands up and says, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to sit quiet and not fight. So the younger monks say that, but you are a Buddhist monk, how can you fight? He says, no, you have to fight for righteousness, you have to fight for dharma, and there comes a time when you have to fight. And then the story ends with all the other people have deserted him. It says this old monk in the monastery, and he hears the sound of the horses, and he bends down and he picks up a stone. The story ends there. What happens after that is left to your and my imagination. But I found that story incredibly moving because it is a gesture. It is a gesture of resistance. It is a gesture of not going quiet into the night while believing in your Daivi Shakti, while believing in your culture. That really kind of anchors you, and that keeps us where we are despite so many transitions. I'll come back to you, Rohan. You talked about media, and you talked about the corrupt influences in media, and you talked about how media is no longer about actual investigative journalism. It's not about going into the field. It's basically just talking heads either in a studio who make speakers fight like roosters, Anand would know what I'm talking about. Every day he goes on TV channels. Or it is about already deciding the headline and then working on the story backward to kind of fit the headline. So how do we break media especially from this trap and get them back into what media is supposed to be doing, which is actual reporting, which is actual investigative journalism, which is actually informing the people of this country about events happening?
Shefali, while you were asking the question, I began to roll up my sleeves. This is exactly what any reporter worth his or her salt should do. Roll up your sleeves, leave the comforts of your home, come to Coimbatore, or go to the hinterlands of, thank you so much, go to the hinterlands of UP, Kashmir, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan to expose the rut of the conventional media, which has not been able to break its mold, because it's people like us who perpetuated the myth that only the left liberal media, what they say is the gospel truth. Why? Because there were also people, the black sheep, even in the current government regime, who allowed this to perpetuate. The fine example is what I'm going to reveal now, that a leading national broadcaster, Sunset Television, which was earlier known by the nomenclature Rajya Sabha TV, it went on to pay a whopping 28 crore to the leading editor of the website which runs and peddles the agenda right now. That is the wire. A certain Mr. Vardarajan, a certain Mr. Paranjoy Gua Thakurta, who's on the ED radar, who keeps on selling cord swallop daily, non-stop, on the websites, on the social media, was getting paid from the coffers of the national treasury. So how can we ill afford to not allow people like us, who have reported extensively, who have today left the comforts of our home, to report from Coimbatore extensively on what you or Mr. Ranganathan or Mr. Avasthi is going to speak, because we believe that there is a method behind this madness. When the websites like Scroll, the Print, the Wire, they operated today, they have luxurious offices in the posh parts of Delhi. Why should ED not raid them? Why has it taken 8 or 9 years of this government to realize that the funding which was coming to a portal called NewsClick was directly operated through China? After all, it was our investigation, investigative journalists like us went out of the comforts of this home to sift through the files, sit with the sleuths in the Khan markets where generally the gangs come to operate and clink the wine glasses. We were sitting under the fan, sweating out in the sweltering heat of June, July summers of Delhi, going through the files of how this website news portal NewsClick was getting the funding of about 8 to 9 crores annually a year. Imagine, can you, any of you, earn this huge amount of a year in an average in a year? 8 से 9 करोड़ आप सोचिए एक वेबसाइट के पास आता है जिसके पास में सिर्फ 6 या 7 पत्रकार हैं, और उन पत्रकारों का काम ये है सुबह से शाम, from morning till evening, all they do is just crib about why Hinduism is expanding, why madrasas are getting shut down. Why not? I would reverse the story. I would go on to support the Yogi government when it does geotagging and geofencing of madrasas, because these madrasas are terror factories. We will call them terror factories at New Indian when we report these, because when we visit these madrasas, we believe that it is the same men who from Kanpur are carrying the ISIS flag, disguising themselves as army officials, Indian Army officials, Indian Air Force officials, and leading India's first ISIS attack on a train that runs from Kanpur to Chhattisgarh. Just before elections of 2017 in Uttar Pradesh, which sends the largest number of MPs to create a scare that yes, if we come to the power, if Samajwadi Party comes to the power, then we will have their support. You better not vote for it. But we will report on their modus operandi by exposing from the Telegram and the WhatsApp secret chats how they operated and brainwashed men in Kerala, men in UP. But these so-called websites which continue today to receive funds from a man called George Soros, जो मैंने आपको आज खुलासा किया कि 28 करोड़ जो फंडिंग गई राज्यसभा टीवी से, वो उस दौर में भी गई when this government was also in the power. So someone was also misleading even this government sitting in the higher echelons of the IMB ministry. There are black sheep in this country who, under the disguise of giving support to us, that is media at large or people like you who hold these events, need to be exposed as well. And we are doing that. We are doing that on a consistent basis. We will go hammer and tong at the Abhisars or the Rathis of this world, which we have now. We will be non-stop. You see, the problem here is not because of the fact that just a one man, George Soros, has been operating. There are at least, according to our own investigations which we have done with several journalists outside, 1,399 such open societies which, under the garb of using a coined phrase like independent journalism, they support these websites. I must tell you and I must share, my own investigation revealed that a company called Razorpay, a digital payment interface called Razorpay, delivered 7.5 crore to a man called Mohammed Zubair under the garb of receiving funds from Dubai, Emirates, Malaysia, Indonesia. How? आप सोचिए Razorpay एक डिजिटल इंटरफेस है. Razorpay had to issue an explanation after my expose, saying that we would not like to be associated with this man. Enforcement Directorate and Delhi Police, the financial wing of the Delhi Police, had to commission a probe against this individual. I will raise my voice against this man. I will raise my voice against those journalists who continue to receive a windfall of resources from these Islamic countries using these digital interface and then go on to create and wage a war in this country by supporting Hamas. The reflection of this is also seen in a pseudo editors platform which has been made over the years called Editors Guild. You see, I find it absolutely stunning that the Editors Guild comprises today of those journalists who have never even reported and gone to Sopore where the terror attack took place, or from Uri or Pulwama where the terror attacks took place, and they side with the same separatists.
Please pronounce it correctly. It's Editor's Guilt.
You know, this is where we need to have the tongue-in-cheek of Anand as well. I personally believe, Shefali ji, Anand and Raghav, कि अगर आप लोगों ने और इन लोगों ने उस दिल्ली के प्रेस क्लब में जिसकी 8 बजे 8 o'clock, you see a certain Mr. Sanghvi who was once the editor of Hindustan Times. Veer Sanghvi. He would open the cork of champagne at 8 o'clock and discuss what are the Hindi chaste abuses that he must discuss with the women of this country. That is the standard of journalism which we saw over the last 15 years, where the comforts of Mercs and the BMWs decided the cause of the Lutyens. Why does the phrase Lutyens emerge after 2009 and 10? Because it's the Khan Market gang which today wipes crocodile tears, which today sheds actually so much of crocodile tears when these people are raided, were actually the people who were clinking the glasses in the comforts of the Delhi's elite press club, where 4 days after the news click is raided, where 4 days after India offers support to Netanyahu, these people go on to claim support for Hamas. They run demonstrations, imagine, against their own government, saying that why are you supporting supporting a country where kids are getting killed by the Hamas. They run open demonstrations, they run open protests. Imagine the conscience that you have to kill of yourself as a journalist when you go on to become part of this so-called editor's guilt. I believe you should kill yourself with the guilt and the remorse if you have to go on to be part of this editor's guild.
Thank you, Rohan. That was very enlightening, actually. Many of us did not know this. Anand, I want to ask you a completely different question. Not many people ask you this. I am not going to talk about your role as a civilizational warrior. I'll go back to your day job as a scientist, actually. And I want to know, what is Bharat's future in the field of science and technology? Because we know that Bharat was the leading nation, leading civilization that contributed to the world in science technology, in math, in metallurgy, in surgery, you name it, in medicine, in many other things. But of late we have seen very few, or at least that's a perception, maybe wrong, you might know better, that very less original research or original innovations or inventions have come out of Bharat in the field of science and technology. I want to hear your take on what is the future of science and technology. Can Bharat regain its position as a thought leader in specifically these fields?
Thanks very much. Before I come to that, I just wanted a leftover response to my dear friend Raghav. First of all, of course, everything that Rohan said, I echo, but I always get worried when he says I roll my sleeves and think there is someone else who I remember who rolls his sleeves, and then goes forward. So please be the leader of opposition or opposition of leader, we don't know. So, but जो राघव ने कहा उससे मुझे एक as someone said quite famously that while the Hindu sharpens refines his argument, the Muslim sharpens his sword. What Raghav said reminded me of that. When he talks of divine Shakti helping the Hindus going forward, Hindu community that is isolated, I just want to give you 2 or 3 examples. And this is not being derisive against or for the divine Shakti. I am, a self-declared Darwinian atheist, but I do not mind the believers at all. I kind of very much I'm a civilizational Hindu, and each to his or her own. But did this divine Shakti help those who were butchered in January 19th, 1990? And ran away from a population that was overwhelmingly 98.4% Muslim? Did this divine Shakti help those in Kerala? Did this divine Shakti or thinking of this help those yesterday in Malappuram when they are witnessing tens of thousands of their fellow Indians cheering a Hamas terrorist who's been linked up? And finally, I know of one gentleman called Mr. Shankar Bhatt, the only politician who actually helped the Kashmiri Hindus who were running away after being genocide was committed against them was Bal Thackeray. So he gave refuge to this Mr. Shankar Bhatt, a Kashmiri Hindu. His children studied in schools because of Bal Thackeray. He stayed next to Azad Maidan, and he told me a couple of years ago that the funny thing is when the CA thing was starting and that la ilaha illallah, tera mera rishta kya, everything started. He said, and now you see the resonance here. You see Indian Muslims marching, fighting, supporting Hamas, fighting for Palestinians' rights, right? And he said, I have witnessed Rohingyas who committed a genocide against Hindus in Myanmar, and this has been validated by the United Nations. And you had Indian Muslims writing in Azad Maidan demanding refugee status for those Rohingyas. He said, when did any Indian Muslim march for the rights of Kashmiri Hindus, people like me, who were driven out? But so this divine Shakti is great to channelize your energies or to feel good and calm about things. But I'm afraid when something has been done legally, openly, when subconsciously we have accepted 5 times a day thrown at us that there is no God but Allah, 5 times a day, and you are forbidden to worship anybody else. Is that not egregious and rude towards people who have other gods? But we've accepted it. And likewise, we've accepted every other thing that is happening legally. You see, Gujarat has a law where if a riot or communal disturbance happens, you cannot sell or buy the property of the person belonging to the other religion. Congress brought this law, but it is there in Gujarat. It is to prevent large-scale migrations in and out. But in Kerala, there have been no riots. In Bengal, there have been no riots. In Malappuram, there have been no riots. But Hindus have been forced to flee. So it is happening. There is no solution, Raghav. Divine Shakti, I'm sorry, I humbly disagree. Something else would have to be done. But now, very quickly to come to Shefali, my apologies that I kind of went tangential. Yes, two ways to answer this question, Shefali. One, I think first, it has not been acknowledged enough, but I want to acknowledge it, and I do use every platform to acknowledge it, that India's finest achievement, scientific or non-scientific, since independence, has been to administer a vaccine to 1 billion Indians twice over within a year. When we started vaccinating, the naysayers or the Lutyens entitled said, look at Jacaranda, or I've even forgotten her name, New Zealand Prime Minister. We need a Prime Minister like her. Right? Jacinda, Jacaranda, whatever the thing is. Okay, we bring her to India. Right? And after we had vaccinated 1 billion Indians, first dose, she still had not finished vaccinating New Zealanders, who are only 10 million population. Yes. So it's been spectacular. When the push comes down to shove, we have shown our mettle. And it makes me immensely proud that Indian scientists were at the forefront. However, when you talk of going forward, we not only have to take care of eventualities like this, we also have to be prepared to see what is around us, whether we can use that. And there, I'm afraid we are lacking. To give you one example, I'll finish within a minute. How many of you know Lakshmi Kutti? Okay, one hand has gone up, but that is my wife, so that, because I have told her maybe, or she's learnt it, so that doesn't count at all. Okay, no hand went up. Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am, one hand. So I would say 99.99% people did not know. I was in the same boat as yours. Couple of years ago, even I didn't know who Lakshmi Kutti was. Lakshmi Kutti got Padma Shri 4 years ago. Because all her life, she's 85-year-old frail lady. She stays in the jungles of Kerala. She has been collecting medicinal plants and cataloging them. Her library is now 500 plants. And each of those plants will have a molecule that will cure cancer or diabetes, where Indians are now, more than 100 million Indians are confirmed diabetics. Confirmed 100 million. 150 million Indians are pre-diabetic. These are catastrophes that are waiting to happen. Because with great prosperity, we have flipped the kind of diseases that were affecting Indians. In 1990, 70%, before economic liberalization, 70% of the diseases that affected Indians were communicable diseases, like tuberculosis, malaria, viral diseases. 30% were non-communicable, like heart ailments, diabetes, asthma, cancer. Now it is flipped. 70% of diseases affecting Indians are diabetes, heart ailments, asthma. So we gave her Padma Shri, but now we've forgotten about her. Any of those 500 plants will have a super drug that might cure either cancer or diabetes or asthma or any of those communicable or non-communicable diseases. We should have had 500 Lakshmi Kutti natural products institutes by now, where the mandate would be, your job is, this is the plant, find out the active ingredient, try and see what happens to it. And just to end, if you think this is a figment of my imagination, I want to ask, how many of you know TUU? No, your hand going up doesn't count. Yes. So, TUU was a Chinese lady, 10 years elder to Lakshmi Kutti. So she's probably 95 now. Like Lakshmi Kutti worked the jungles of Kerala, she worked the jungles of China. In 1960s, she discovered a plant. She isolated the molecule out of that. That molecule is artemisinin. And artemisinin is now the only viable cure for malaria. And for that, TUU got the Nobel Prize in medicine and pharmacology. And what will happen, I'll tell you. This cornucopia of 500 plants of Lakshmi Kutti, Western Europeans or Western nations, their labs would say, seek access from our government to take this library to their labs. They would do it. Lakshmi Kutti is very gracious. She would give them the plants happily. Once the plants are there, they would isolate the molecule. Those molecules would be multi-billion-dollar anti-diabetes, anti-cancer drugs. They would get the Nobel Prize. they would go to the Nobel Prize award ceremony and thank Lakshmi Kutty. And we would be overjoyed. We have given her a Padma Shri. We'll possibly give her a Padma Bhushan. Thank you.
Raghav, you wanted to answer. And after that, do we have time for a question and answer session? 10 minutes. Okay.
I'll be brief, and I should have expected this. To speak about a civilizational Hindu without the idea of God as the central force is to speak of temples like a museum. Right? We can all visit them for cultural artifacts. There are two ways to approach the question of our civilization and of our truth. And like I said, we need both Swayambodh and Shatrubodh. The idea of a divine Shakti, unfortunately, because of maybe the education, maybe because of popular culture, maybe because of the influence of the global culture, has somehow come to, in our imagination, be divorced from the real fundamentals of life itself. Now, the first way to approach the question of your civilization is, if we were so great, why were we conquered? The second way to approach our civilization is, how did we survive 1,000,000 years of oppression if we are going to just die in the next 50 years? The first question precludes the possibility of an empathetic spiritual inquiry. The second question does not. The second question can still very critically examine what went wrong, correct it, but at the same time, it has the creative possibility of really understanding your spiritual heritage. Now, whether or not, in our recent examples, any history survey can give us examples for anything. But Shivaji Maharaj did pray to Bhavani Mata, right? Sri Aurobindo did have a vision of Sri Krishna in prison. Swami Vivekananda prayed to Ma Kali. Right? So whether we believe in Tagore, whether we believe in Shivaji Maharaj, whether we believe in Sri Aurobindo, whether we believe in Swami Vivekananda, there is just one idea of Bharat that has held the civilization together. If we are claiming a civilization for India, if we are saying that this is an inherited tradition, without God as the central figure, there is no Indian civilization which is unique, which is different to any other global civilization. We might as well call ourselves any other civilization. Then the concern of a Hindu does not matter if it is just a cultural entity. Even a secular state might give you temples to have like cultural visits, right? The reason we care about this, and this dichotomy that if we are spiritual and talking about divine Shakti, we will not have the weapons, is actually, I feel fallacious, because the policy response to actually changing the very constitution, changing the laws, will also come when each one of us expresses the cultural demand. And for us, the culture is religious. Bharat is religious. This is Swami Vivekananda's seminal observation. Unless you and I really demand that our temples be the places of worship where God is central, there is no other force that gets us together. And once we have sufficient numbers of us who actually demand that, then the state better respond to that. That is when the problem that you are articulating of how do we tackle this without the state force is essentially linked to the question of Indians finding their own divine Shakti once again. To see this as two different things, I think, is not just a cognitive fallacy, but it's also a bit of a fear, because we don't have any other way. Might as well give it up, right? So I don't accept this argument that these are separate inquiries. I think the first and the Daivik Shakti leads to the Praja Shakti, which leads to the Satta Shakti and the constitutions that we need to protect our freedoms. Thank you.
Hello. I have time for 2, possibly 3 questions. Please just ask a question and ask the person who you are addressing it to.
This is not exactly a question, a small clarification or whatever is explanation. Yesterday's that Hamas leader who spoke and all those people who attended are the liberal Muslims of Kerala, the members of Muslim League Party. Okay, they are the allies of the Congress Party fighting election for several years. The hardcore people are the members of the Popular Front of India members who are not there. All said and done, one credit should be given to the government, like the Article 370 is the ban of Popular Front of India and taking away all the top leaders overnight in a very secret operation. Several aircrafts flying to various airports in Kerala at 3 o'clock in the morning, taking around 1,500 hardcore criminals. Still we don't know their whereabouts. Nobody, even media is not speculating. That was a fantastic operation. Even the national media never covered it properly. There is a small silver lining in this Islamic issue. There are a lot of new ex-Muslims are coming up. In Kerala especially, I have seen there are many of they attract around 2 to 3 lakhs followers in the ex-Muslims YouTube channels. They criticize, a Muslim can criticize Quran, he can talk about Nabi as a rapist and racist, but Hindu cannot do it. But these people are doing it on the YouTube channels, they are getting a lot of traction. That is a good silver lining on the atmosphere. Thank you.
A few months back, I happened to visit Bali. Bali is in Indonesia, part of Indonesia, a Muslim majority country. Bali is 90% Hindu. And moment you land in the Bali airport and come out, all the anywhere in this junction, there's beautiful, statues of some stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata, which I also didn't know. Every building, the hotel I stayed, the moment you enter the hotel, there has to be Lord Ganesha's statue. School, I visited I entered a school, there's a Ganesha. There's a temple, there's a mosque. Outside the mosque, there is Ganesha, on the wall. Then on the hill, their most sacred temple is there. So no building in Bali can be higher than that temple. So no skyscraper can be built. So much of this thing has been given to Hinduism in a Muslim majority country, and Hinduism has survived. So in a country where Hindus continue to be majority, why do we need to be so despondent when many Shefali ji and so many of you all are there? Why should you get a sense of despondency? That's my question.
That's an interesting question, and I think Hindus will also be given a lot of rights in India when we become Muslim majority. That's not a... you see, please try and understand. I don't just, kind of peddle despondency just for the heck of it. No, I'm not being disparaging. I completely understand your question. But this is one of those very few problems that I cannot find a solution to. And it really irritates me. Almost everything by virtue of what I do, it is by habit I want to find a solution. Either I find a solution or I look for a solution, somebody else has found it. Here there is no solution because everything is happening legally. And once you become a Muslim majority, you start to follow those principles. Please understand. It is not something that I'm saying that's new. It is by design. There will be discrimination against women, against homosexuals, against non-believers. There will be. What are you going to do? You will not be taught. There will be 100 things that would suddenly appear out of the blue that would be different in a Muslim majority region here. I'm not talking Muslim majority India, right? Shefali ji took the example of Afghanistan. You had those Bamiyan Buddhas being shot to smithereens. When I say in Kashmir, 200 temples have been demolished, I'm not talking of Sikandar's reign or Butchikan, I'm talking of on the floor of the J&K assembly, the chief minister admitted in the last 15 years to demolished and erased in the last 15 years. So, if we take the example of Bali, we take the example of Ganesha ji on the currency note, these are all feel-good things. What is happening here, and just to end, and I'm not talking of the divine Shakti, I'm just saying this, that it is all very well for us who are comfortable, who have a salary, who have a job, whose children are in school, to say that Hindus should stay put, fight, stand your ground like Angads, put your feet on the thing. Think of the fellow in Kairana, in Malappuram. Think of the Kashmiri Hindu in the valley in Srinagar, you are encouraging to do this. He is suffering. You are feeling good because he is suffering. Should he be suffering? There are death threats to him. He can be killed any moment. His family is under threat of rape, abduction, conversion. So while it feels good for you to say that, yes, stay put, stand your ground, this is what Hinduism is. You're not doing it. Somebody else is doing it. And I don't have a response for that except feeling ashamed and guilty.
Just one question quickly. Yeah, oh, okay. Anandaji, make it quick and make the answers also quick, please.
Yeah, the question is something that I've asked always. Kshatratvam kutaha. We've always been asking this question. We are all happy to say, Mera kya jata, kiska baap ka kya jata, and let's just train our children to get into engineering overseas, go overseas and get the 5-acre house. So how do we recreate? I mean, from all your conversations, the only thing that I feel is the lack of the kshatra. That rajas, the dynamism is there, but the kshatra is missing. And how do we generate that kshatra amongst our next generation?
Please answer in one sentence.
3 institutions, and the 3 institutions that have given us the Indian civilization. First one is family, second is guru, third is temple. It is these 3 institutions that we need to re-anchor on, and that is why God is central, because the thing that binds all of these things is not secular, it is sacred. So Rajas also comes from sacred, Anandaji.
In less than a sentence, the family is being converted, the temple is being demolished, and my guru is Zakir Naik.
You want to add something quickly?
You see, my guru is only Shifali Vaidya and Anandangan no Zakir Naik.
Thank you for being such a lovely audience. We really don't have the time for it. You can always meet the speakers later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, speakers. It definitely was an eye-opening and an enlightening session. Now we have Sri J. Nandakumar Ji, a national convener, chief of Pragnya Prava, Indic thinker, author and speaker to address the gathering. I request Professor Kanaga Sapapati Ji to accompany him on stage.
We are very sorry to inform that Mananiya Ranga Hari, a Rashtra Rishi, is no more. A father figure to thousands of Karyakartas, a genius, towering personality, is no more. Let us stand in silence for a minute. Mananiya Nandakumarji is the convener of the nationalistic think tank Prajna Prava. He is a social worker who dedicated his life, entire life, for the nation building process. A journalist, former editor of the Kesari, the largest circulating publication in Kerala, Sangha publication, a well-known author. Recently, he published Swa, the struggle for national selfhood. It explains as to how we need to develop the selfhood within us for the nation. He is a known public intellectual. He is connecting the intellectuals across Bharat for the last 4 or 5 years. He was one of those mentored by Mananiya Rangahariji. So emotionally, we have all our feelings today, but in spite of it, he has agreed to speak to us before proceeding to Ernakulam for performing the final rites. I request Mananiya Nandakumarji to speak.
वंदे गुरुपतद्वन्द्वम् अवाङ्मनस्सगोचरं रक्तशुक्लप्रभामिश्रम् अतर्क्यं त्रैपिरं महत् ओम तत्सत्. Most respected Professor Kanaka Sabhabati and all dignitaries, brothers, sisters who are assembled here for this renowned Lit Fest, which was started recently. As it was announced by Kanaka Sabhabati, every well-meaning Hindu, not only me, is in a completely shattered mental state now. Of course, Ranga Hariji is already completed 93 years. It was not an unexpected death. He was in hospital also. Badly affected with cancer and all. But still, we were all thinking that that great personality will be with us forever. Such a great personality who gave line and light for Hindu organizational movement. All great things nowadays we are all thinking about. We are all in such a mood that we are the first persons who are thinking about the Hindutva, Hindu movement and all. As if we have founded, and someone are claiming even we have given direction to Dr. Hedgewar to start RSS even. And some new Hindus are even claiming that they are giving tuition in day-to-day basis to Mohan Bhagwat and Narendra Modi. How to be a true Hindu. We have to learn much about that great movement which has started 100 years back. Because of that great movement and that great Mandhan, Hindu Vichara Mandhan, which was started by Dr. Hedgewar. I have to say it bluntly, that is because today I want to say it. I mean it. You may be knowing the founder of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha, the organization which I belong to, and Ranga Hariji belong to, and Kanaka Sabhabati belong to. That great founder, Dr. Hedgewar, when he was addressed by a person in a meeting related to independence struggle. The question was like that. It was in 1926, 97 years back. There were no much Hindus at that point of time who were proud about their Hindu heritage, Hindu tradition and all. That question was, who is that fool who says this is Hindu Rashtra? That person found that he saw that Dr. Edgawar was also in that hall. And in order to ridicule, he asked, what would have been our reaction if we were addressed, we were questioned like this? I am quite sure many such persons will go out of that hall putting even their gamcha or that towel on their head. ऐसा ही जाना पड़ेगा था. But Dr. Hedgawar was such a personality. He stood up from his chair, went in front of that hall, addressing all like a lion, and roared, I, Dr. Keshabalram Hedgawar says, this is Hindu Rashtra. And if you call such a person a fool, I am that fool and I am proud of that foolishness. Such a great personality. Rangahariji drew inspiration from him. He started work in a place known as Kerala, where in 1921 that great massacre took place, Hindu massacre took place. He worked in Malappuram, he worked in Calicut, among all these adversaries. We may be knowing, we are all quite aware about all these facts, that Islamic fundamentalist, Christian conversion group and communist anti-national group, all these three dosha, they are being called as three dosha, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. If one person is affected by one of these dosha, we are aware about what will be his position. If all these doshas got aggravated, what would have been the situation? Kerala's situation is like that. So there Rangahariji started this work. I haven't got much time, and totally internally I am disorganized also because of hearing that. But we have to remember some things, some issues related to those great personalities. In 1984-85, that was the era of SIMI's emergence, Students' Islamic Movement of India. Actually, it was started and directed by some persons of Kerala. There they have started a campaign in Kerala. All over Bharat there was a campaign. In Kerala, we found a poster. All of a sudden some posters appeared. Indiyude Mochanam Islamilude. The liberation of India through Islam. That was the poster. Suddenly lakhs and lakhs of posters appeared. Rangahariji immediately called a meeting in Ernakulam of youngsters like us. We were all young pracharaks of RSS at that time. And he gave us a nara, slogan. The end of Islam will be in India itself. That was his nara. Islam in the Andyam. Someone may think that this is a bit aggressive one slogan. Islam in the Andyam Indiyailude. Indiyil Tanne. It will be in India. That was his Malayalam translation, and everywhere it has been translated in local languages, and that poster has been given. And that counter campaign was a brainchild of Rangahariji. Just an example, I'm saying. We are not aware about such personalities who were actually the intellectual Kshatriyas who made today's Hindus' mind. So we have to think about that great personality today. And just Professor has said that needless to say that it is a personal loss of mine also. Right from the age of 11, for the last 47 years, he was there to show me the road, show me the way and everything. All of a sudden I feel that at the midday the sun was set. Such a condition is there, so sorry I could not talk much about the topic which has been given all of a sudden by Kanakasabhavadiji, because day before yesterday when he called, he told me that there will be a discussion about Kerala's communist issue. So no preparation as such is necessary for me to talk about communism for 2 or 3 days. So today morning only he gave me the topic. You have to talk about struggle for national selfhood. Okay, that book was written by me. We have just successfully finished our Amrita Mahotsava. For the first time, Bharatiyas celebrated in such a big way the anniversary of our independence. It's the 75th year anniversary. And before this celebration took place, 2-3 years back, some of the workers generally who are thinking about the content of the celebration, they all sat together and thought about how it must be celebrated. What must be its content? Naturally, the first and foremost thing put before was we have to put before the society the true history of Bharat's independence struggle. Why it was thought out in that way? You are all aware about the fact we were all discussing for the last one day, and today also we were discussing about the situation of our education, our history, what mainstream historians wrote about our Bharat independence struggle. They are all thinking about in such a way that it was started recently after one political organization was founded in 1885 by a British personality. Then only independence struggle started. And some are thinking in the way, and even in the history books it was written, that 1857 was the starting point of our independence struggle. In such a way, our independence struggle history of Indian independence struggle is being portrayed in such a way. So the first and foremost thing we all thought about the celebration of Bharat's independence struggle was put before the public the true history of Bharat's Swadhinta Sangarsha. And also second thing was we have to think seriously about the unknown heroes and heroines of our independence struggle. See, generally, if any history student was asked a question that who all fought for our independence struggle, how many names they will give? Generally, they will give a family's pura name. Grandfather, father, daughter, daughter's son, and son's son. Even he also is a leader of Indian independence struggle. In such a way, a family's kitchen history is being made and put before us that they fought for us independence struggle. They don't know about the great personality who actually, how many of the North Indians, not only North Indians, even Tamilians know about Vanji Iyer? How many Tamilians even are knowing about Velu Nachiyar's contribution in Indian independence struggle? How many are aware about Kuili? How many Kannadigas are knowing about Rani Abbakka? There are a lot of independence struggle leaders, but it is being portrayed in such a way that some people or one family has fought for us. So this unknown, unsung heroes and heroines history is to be placed before the society. As far as we could, we must try for that. See, Swami Vivekananda, when he spoke about the history of Bharat, he clearly analyzed the situation and what we have to do to this history. I am talking about that book's background only. Swamiji talked about it, and it is being published in his Life of Swami Vivekananda by his Eastern and Western Disciples, second edition, Kolkata, Advaita Ashram. In that book, it is printed also, that particular speech. I would like to quote. The histories of our country, written by English and other Western writers, cannot but be weakening to our minds, for they talk only of our downfall. They talk only of our downfall. How can foreigners who understand very little of our manners and customs or religion and philosophy write faithful and unbiased histories of India? Naturally, many false notions and wrong inferences have found their way to them. Our history was written by the rulers of that time. There was a specific purpose of such history writing also. And then in the last part of that speech, Swami Vivekananda exhorted the young participants of that particular program. He said, he added, now it is for us to strike out an independent path of historical research for ourselves, to study the Vedas and Puranas and the ancient annals of India. And from this make it our life's sadhana to write accurate, sympathetic and soul-inspiring histories of the land. Again he added, it is for the Indians, to be more precisely, it is for the true Indians to write Bharat's history. It is needed. Unless and until our people, our next generation will not know, they will not get the opportunity to learn about Bharat's history in a true perspective. Why English people or the foreigners wrote this type of history and gave it as our textbooks? Shamelessly, our rulers also allowed this history to continue. What was the reason? Some 3 or 4 years back, one great novelist and story writer and storyteller, Booker Prize winner Ben Okri, visited Bharat. One special ecosystem wala invited him to Jaipur. I don't want to talk much about that particular ecosystem. Let first. They thought that they may be. I am not saying that they are quite ignorant about Ben Okri, but I feel so. That they were thinking that a black person got Booker Prize, he must be invited to such a great illustrious lit first, and he may give some 3-4 gali to Pradhan Mantri and RSS, Hindutva and all. They thought and invited him, but in the first sentence itself, he shattered their dreams. He started the speech by saying that your Panchatantra, your Mahabharata, your Ramayana gave me inspiration to write novels and kahani. That was his starting point. I don't know correctly, but some Upashala Charchas are saying that none was there to give him goodbye or take him to Delhi also. Just like the otters, the old otters were taken to booths, and after that they will be left there itself. In that way, Ben Okri alone came back. Aisa discussion hai. I am not quite sure about that. But he came to Delhi and addressed a press conference in Delhi. At that point of time, an intelligent media person, such persons are also there in media, he asked a question. See, Mr. Ben, your history, that means Nigeria, Africa, that history, and our history, Bharat's history, are almost the same. Both were ruled by the foreigners. And our history writing was being manipulated. How do you think about that? He repeated one of his off-cotton quotation. He repeated. It goes like this. I'm quoting. To poison a nation, poison its stories. To poison a nation, poison its stories. A demoralized nation. In between there is a small sentence also. Through these poisoned stories, the nation will become demoralized. And you are saying, a demoralized nation tells demoralized stories to itself. That's a dangerous situation. Dangerous situation. You can see perfect parallel among our intellectuals in Bharat also. We are just saying that demoralized stories we learned from those foreigners. We are repeating it to ourselves. We are also saying that we are Dravidas, we are Aryans, we came here, we control them. These Arya Dravida stories and that poisoned stories are being repeated by us. In that same way, Benokri said, a demoralized nation tells demoralized stories to itself. Beware of the storytellers. So this type of lit first is for that. Such storytellers are to be taken to task. That's our duty. So Benokri told that beware of the storytellers who are not fully conscious of the importance of their gifts and who are irresponsible in the application of their art. They could unwittingly help along the psychic destruction of their people. Psychic destruction. So we are also facing such a psychic destruction. So those people who sat together to discuss about the content of the Amrita Mahotsava, they thought about, it is an apt occasion, it's an opportune moment for us to put before the public the true history as far as we could. We have to talk about the unknown heroes and unknown heroines, unsung heroes to be more precisely. We have to talk about the great incidents who shaped Bharat's independence. Those things are to be put before them. That was another aspect which we have discussed was actually were there no true Bharatiyas who wrote true right history? There were n number of historians. Jadunath Sarkar, R.C. Majumdar, Sardar K.M. Panikkar. If these professional historians will consider Veera Savarkar as a historian, then Veera Savarkar. Great personalities are there, historians were there. But they were all sidelined or neglected. You may be knowing about what happened to R.C. Majumdar. He has been given the responsibility to write the history of Indian independence struggle. And after completing one chapter or one volume, that committee was dismissed. Make Muslims a totally aggressive group. So he joined the Khilafat movement. Khilafat movement failed. Then he came to know that going back to Muslim League is not that correct. It will be more beneficial for Muslims that he must work in Congress. So he went back to Congress. He was the person he gave the slogan that time has come. Time has come. Oh Muslims, we have to be ready to make ourselves free. Such a personality. They don't know. Both these personalities, I agree with you, I don't care also. But my inference about that particular personality he was the first Islamo-leftist historian. He was working in Tehran as the ambassador there. After working there for 4 or 5 years, he was called back. And he has given the responsibility to write the freedom struggle's history. And what he has done, what already James Mill has done, already the British historians have made, he just changed the color of the book. In some places, full stop has been changed to comma. Semicolon has been changed to colon. Changed to comma. Semicolon has been changed to colon. That's all. That history is being, we are repeating that particular history. What happened to Jadunath Sarkar? Jadunath Sarkar wrote clear history of our medieval. This division itself is not that correct. Ancient history, medieval history and modern history, the pattern of the Western countries, there were, in their country, an ancient history was there that was dark age for them. Some medieval history was there that was an era of synthesis for them. And a modern history, an history of enlightenment, an era of enlightenment. That is true for them. Christian countries, it is true. But it is not true for us. Our ancient history, what is the ancient history of Bharat? Veda, Purana, Upanishads, our scientific achievements, so that period, whether it was a dark age, but James Mill has written it in that way. James Mill wrote the history of British India, and he claimed that I am writing it quite objectively. What is his objective history writing, critical analysis, and all those things, and his capacity and his qualification to write it? He himself wrote in the introduction that his capacity to write such a history, I would like to quote. The book begins with a preface in which Mill tries to make a virtue of having never visited India and of knowing none of its native languages. That was his qualification. And he divided Bharat history into three. To him, there are guarantees of his objectivity, and he boldly claims so. And such history is being repeated by this leftist and Islamist historians. Jadunath Sarkar wrote about the Mughal era, especially on Aurangzeb. Nowadays we are being taught that Aurangzeb was the greatest secular king of Bharat. It's being taught. Why Aurangzeb's Mughal dynasty was started? Not because of the Hindu resistance, only because of the revenue crunch. Revenue crunch happened during that time. Otherwise it would not have been. That is the way in which they have put. But that book and those great volumes written by Jadunath Sarkar created a much attraction towards such a history writing and everything. But at that point of time, Congress leader, father of our first Prime Minister, Mr. Motilal Nehru, invited one of his closest friends from a foreign university who was in England, Mr. Muhammad Habib. Second name, aap sabhi ko malum hai. You all know about that. Yes, his Uppa. In Tamil also Uppa karte hai kya? Abba or Uppa. Irfan Habib's father. Muhammad Habib was called and gave the responsibility to teach history, first of all, to the Nehru family. He became the tutor of his son. That is why the history is being written in that way. And Muhammad Habib was called, and he became the authority of all history writing and everything. So there were, I don't want to explain much, there were historians, true Bharatiya historians, but they were all neglected, sidelined, or blackened. So that is why we have to bust some myths. We have to bust some myths. But first of all, Islamic invasion of India was a myth. That myth is to be busted. This Muhammad Habib's history and Irfan Habib's history taught us in this way that Islam or Muslim never attacked Bharat. They were invited by your own people, especially the backward community people. They were being suffering for several years, suppressed by the Brahmanical, hegemonic, what all nonsenses are there. They are being suppressed. So the poor Harijans and backward community people invited Islamic kings to invade Bharat and give us light. Islam is light. And Islam is peace. Islam is peace also. Both these things. So gave us peace and light. So please come. Muslim invaders were not motivated by Islam in their conquest of India. That's another myth. Not motivated. And I will just give some points only. Third, forcible conversions of Hindus were a bigger myth. No forcible conversions took place. I am not just saying something, I am not exaggerating anything. You please go through the official history books. Still in use. I must say, still in use. And another thing, millions of low-caste Hindus voluntarily, joyfully accepted the universal brotherhood of Islam. What is universal brotherhood? Dr. Ambedkar has said the brotherhood among them. That's all. That is a cooperative of them. But the history is saying that universal brotherhood of Islam to escape Brahmanical oppression. That's why it happened. Islam was a liberating force which for the first time introduced true social equality in India, as a result of which lakhs of Hindus voluntarily helped build magnificent mosques and palaces for Muslim sultans. Maybe because of that, the great intellectuals of Kerala and Bharat are inviting Hamas leader to address their meeting. That is why they are saying they are forgetting October 7 and talking about October 8 and onwards. What happened on October 7? Everything you know. They are trying to say that Hamas is of soldiers. They are soldiers. They are warriors. They are fighters. I don't know how Tamil paper are writing about that. In Kerala, almost every paper, newspaper, except one paper which was run by Dr. Edgavar's party, RSS, Janmabhoomi, rest all papers are giving this type of explanation. And Aurangzeb's vast empire of Islamic bigotry imploded due to a revenue crisis and not because of his industrial scale oppression of Hindus. Another myth, civilizational duty of Britishers, education, industry, development, nation concept, everything was given by them. Actually, the independence struggle was also a contribution of Britishers. That is the way in which it is being said. What is this nation, Bharat? Where was your India? One of the great intellectuals, her name can also be mentioned, Sagarika Ghosh, made a tweet. Where was your India before British came here? It was only a landmass in between Burma and Afghanistan. It was only a landmass in between Burma and Afghanistan. One of our social media activists have given a befitting reply to that. Yes, madam, you are correct. That's why when they came here, Britishers came here, they started a company also. British East Landmass in between Burma and Afghanistan company. They have started such a company also. So this is the way in which they are giving us coaching and training and tuitions about Bharat's history. And regarding independence struggle also, they are saying actually the national concept, nation-state concept has been given by Britishers. In that way, a single stream, politically motivated struggle, that was the Indian independence struggle. There was no other phase for Indian independence struggle, Bharat's freedom struggle. The very nation concept was a colonial construct. These are the myths which are before us. There are so many other points also. So we have to address these issues. First of all, what was the starting point of Bharat's independence struggle? Whether it was started in 1885 after Macaulay started, A.O. Hume started Indian national contest, or whether it was started on the fine morning of 1857 shooting, whether it was correct or not. Okay, our own people also say that 1857 first war of independence. It became that, imprinted into our mind and intellect and chiti even. Involuntary we used to say 1857 aa gaya to turant the first war of independence. Aisa batayenge. It is to be analyzed. And what was the real inspiration for them to came here? Was it an unharmful trade inspiration to do business here? Doing business is good for us also. Give and take. We will get something and you will get something. So trade is not that problematic. So we are also saying the very same thing. Britishers came here for business. Dutch came here for business. Portugal came here for business. Was it so? Is it a correct thing? Then we have to think about what was the reason behind the great Tordesillas summit which was called by Marpapa. Why Portugal and France was called, the great leaders, Catholic leaders of kings were called and divided the whole earth into two, and the eastern hemisphere has been given to Portugal and the western hemisphere has been given to France. What is the purpose? Why they took missionaries with them when they came here? When Vasco da Gama landed at Kapad Kadappuram, Kapad beach of Calicut, he has got enough number of missionaries with him. He has got enough number of cross with him. He has got enough number of Bible with him. How many of are going to the market to purchase bindi or banana or even machli? Purchase, when we are going to market, we are taking our purohita also with us to select good bindi. We have to take the temple purohita with us. Will we? Then why they took the missionaries with them? Was it the very, very simple, innocent trade relative purpose was that? We have to think about it. And of course, compare the economic, educational, cultural, social and gender condition here. At that point of time when they came here, what was their condition and what was our condition? Gender condition, I have purposefully included that. What was the condition of women in England, France and Dutch at that point of time when they came here? They attacked us. They were saying that women were given freedom, equality by them. It was their contribution. Is it a fact? What was the condition? They were discussing whether women is a human being or not. That was the condition there. In the churches and the seminaries, the main discussion was, sisters and mothers who are sitting here, they were discussing whether women is a human being. Then the church went on to say whether they can give equal position with the men. Then comes whether they have got Atma, soul. That was the discussion going on there. And many of their missionary leaders suggested that no, they haven't got Atma because women gave inspiration for the men to do Papa. So they must not have Atma. Then someone put a point before them, point of order. See, Jesus Christ's mother was also a woman. Okay, then let them have half Atma, 50% Atma. That was the condition there. What was our condition? See, in the beginning of the 16th century, when Portugal came and attacked Ullal, who resisted? Who saved Ullal and Mangalore? Rani Abbakka. Abbakka formed a women's army, led men's army, and fought against them. How many times Abbakka defeated Portugal? After 150, 175 years, in our Tamil Nadu, what was that particular area? Shiva Ganga district. Velu Nachiyar, she was fighting. She was fighting against Britishers. All these aspects have to be discussed. Then, what was the nature of their rule? It was multifaceted. What was our response? Whether it was multifaceted or not. Whether whole society was participated in our independence struggle. Whether women have participated, whether farmers have participated, whether tribals have participated, whether peasants participated, we have to discuss about this. And at last but not the least, the greatest question, that is, what was the real inspiration of our independence struggle? Whether it was political alone. For that, I would like to quote Maharishi Aurobindo, and I'll put a full stop there. Actually, the inspiration of our independence struggle was swa or selfhood of this nation. Bharat selfhood. If politics was the sole purpose of Indian independence struggle, political freedom alone, why Tantia Tope fought after Jhansi Rani fell? Rao Sahib died. Nana Sahib was taken to Nepal. Tantia Tope continued the struggle. Why? What was the reason? If it was for political power, which was the state or area ruled by Tantia Tope continued it. So, taking all into consideration, Aurobindo defined our independence struggle in a very proper manner. I will quote. It has been printed as a small book, Awakening Soul of India by Aurobindo, in which he has clearly defined it. I am quoting. The task we set before ourselves is not mechanical, but moral and spiritual. Our independence struggle, task means independence struggle. It is not a mechanical or political alone purpose, it is a spiritual and moral war. We aim not at the alteration of a form of government, but at the building up of a nation. We are not planning to change the form of a government. It was not political alone. We have to create the Rashtra as a whole. Of that task, politics is a part, but only a part. Only a part. We shall devote ourselves not to politics alone, nor to social questions alone, nor to theology or philosophy or literature or science by themselves, but we include all these in one entity which we believe to be all important, the Dharma. The Dharma, the national religion. I was just hearing Rakhavji was talking about that religion. Our national religion. That was the inspiration. Dharma, the national religion, which we also believe to be universal. It is universal also. When we are talking about our religion, our Sanatana Dharma, it is not at all. Yes, we have to fight for the freedom and fight for the liberation of our people. And we have to march ahead with that prerna inspiration. That's clear. But it is universal also. Aurobindo was saying, there is a mighty law of life, a great principle of human evolution, a body of spiritual knowledge and experience of which India has always been destined to be guardian, exemplar and missionary. This is the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion. This is the Sanatana Dharma. Aurobindo never minced these words. Because why? He don't want to fight the next election. So it is not necessary for him to be politically correct. It is a politically incorrect statement. He said that it is Sanatana Dharma and nothing else. Under the stress of alien impacts, she has largely lost whole not of the structure of that Dharma, but of its living reality. For the religion of India is nothing if it is not lived. It has to be applied not only to life, but to the whole of life. Its spirit has to enter into and mold our society, our politics, our literature, our science, our individual character, affections and aspirations. And see how clearly he has defined our Swatantrata Sangram, our Swadhinata Sangram. This Swa or Sanatana Dharma, or you can call Hindutva, it must enter into politics, industry, education, agriculture, everywhere it must be there. Swatantra, what is the meaning of Swatantra? When we are able to articulate, make, construct our own Tantra, our own methodology on the basis of the Swa. Swa is the prefix of that particular word. On the basis of Swa, when we are able to do our Tantra, then only we can say we are Swatantra. Otherwise we are only Tantra. That is why Mohan Bhagavat used to say, स्वाधीनता से स्वतंत्रता के ओर जो प्रयाण इसका 75 साल पूरा हो गया है. स्वाधीनता से स्वतंत्रता के ओर. We got a power, or we have got the right to select or elect our own rulers. That's all. Still we are not able to promulgate, we are not able to apply this, our Sotwa, our selfhood in education, in our industry, our science, everywhere it is to be applied. That application is necessary. That's why on the basis of the discussion which we have started, what must be the content of the Amrita Mahotsava, I have been given a task to write a small guidebook for our workers on this basis. Small guidebook, a structure. 120, 135 pages, one small book was written. And while I gave it to Pujaniya Mohan Bhagavat, he asked me, whenever you get time, make it bit more elaborate. So 3-4 months, I tried bit more with the help of all great, our fellow travelers, our Karyakartas, and our persons, great teachers like Rangahariji and all. I elaborated it, enhanced it, and near about 400 pages, one book in the name Swa, the struggle for national selfhood, present, past, past, present, future. So what was the independence struggle? What was the real inspiration? And how it was a multifaceted affair, how we fought in the education field, how we fought in the industrial field, everywhere our leaders fought the independence struggle. All those things, all those factors are to be taken, are considered to be independence struggle. And as far as the future is concerned, if we want to make our nation a Param Vaibhava Rashtra, totally developed nation, we have to apply that Swa, just like Maharishi Aurobindo has given that direction, we have to apply this Swatwa in each and every facet of our life. That is necessary. I would like to conclude to add a small point further to that Swa point and Bharat's concept, which was the true inspiration of the independence struggle. I'll give you 4 examples. 4 examples, and I am not going to explain about that. Actually, the Bhakti movement, the Hindu Bhakti movement, was the trigger point of our independence struggle. That was a starting point. That was starting point. The great Bhakti saints who wrote the Kavitas, Bhaktis, Kirtanas about the other worldly affairs, moksha and all, but they gave equal importance for Bharat's Mukti also. Many great researchers are also sitting here, especially working in the literary field, especially working about our history part. They must give some time for do some thorough research on this aspect also. I'm not a researcher. I'm a layman. I'm an organizational person. But you people can take it further forwards. 4 examples from 4 parts of Bharat. One is East, that is Gujarat. Person's name is Narsi Mehta. Narsi Mehta, you all are Vaishnava Janato Tene Karhiye, Je Ped Parai Jane Re. That's Kirtans were all his contribution. He wrote about that also. But along with that, he wrote about Bharat. I would like to quote 4 lines. Bharata Ghanda Bhutalama Janani Govinda Ko Guna Gayore Dhan Dhan Teni Mata Pitare Dhan Dhan Teni Bayore Govinda Ko Guna Gayore. What is the purpose of saying about Bharata Ghanda in this Kirtana? He was very much aware about the fact that the foreigners, invaders are coming inside. If you want to get mukti, do penance, tapasya, dharmic activities, this land, Bharata Khanda, is the one and only one land where you can do your spiritual penance. Otherwise not. So it is to be saved. That was Narsi Mehta's direction for the people. He might have given a WhatsApp message to Shankardev of Assam. He say Assam jaiye. He must have, I think. Otherwise, this type of one translation type sloka would not have emerged. Shankardev and Madhavdev wrote about bhakti. But along with that, they gave much importance to this Bharata. See, in Assamia, both these persons are of the 1400s. One Narsi Mehta 1414 and Shankardeva 1449. Dhanya dhanya janama bharata barishe tapjaba yagya teji tamar charana bhaji tuvinam khubishu harullah. What Narsi Mehta wrote? Bharata ghanda bhutalama janani. Pundanam writing, Bharata maya ghanda murinnulla parilengumalu talla nirnayam atra mukhyamaayullaru bharatam. Maybe it is for Shankardeva. Atra mukhyamayu, the second time Bharat. Ipradeshamennallaru morkanam. All these great bhakti saints trying to create an atmosphere of nationality among their devotees. Through them, the whole Bharat. That was their purpose. ये तीनों से प्रेरणा लेकर है क्या पता नहीं, Guru Nanak Dev at that time he is bit more fundamental than these 3, because they were using only Bharata. Guru Nanak Dev was using Hindustana, Hindu. Sach ki vani ave Nanak sach sunayasi sach ki bela kaya kapat tuku tuku hosi Hindustan samalasi bola, Hindustan samalasi bola. What was the purpose of writing this type of thing? That's why Aurobindo said. That's why Lokmanya Tilak said. That's why the great leaders of our land, our Bharat, who contributed for the emancipation of the humanity, said that the real inspiration behind the Indian independence struggle was the swa part or selfhood of this nation. So if you want to make this nation more glorious, to make Loka Guru, Vishwa Guru again, we have to go in that direction on the basis of swa, selfhood. That is the need of the hour. Namaskar, Vande Mataram.
Thank you, sir. I request Kanaga Sabhapati, sir, to felicitate. Let us take a quick continental coffee break and be back in 15 minutes.